Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to the next episode of
ESPOOKYS Talk.
My name's Arturo, and I'm here, as always, with the brujaha of all brujahas, Eva.
Welcome back, everybody. We have set positive intentions, lit our protection candle, got our protection crystals.
Yep.
So we're ready to share some good news.
Ready to roll.
We want to share with you that we've reached 500 downloads.
Man, thank you, everyone.
Yes, we can't thank you enough. We also really like the positive feedback or corrective feedback that we've been getting. We got to have both.
Absolutely.
Balance is very important.
Everyone out there is talking about it, and they're sending in all of your information, some stories, some things. It's fantastic, so keep them rolling in.
So as promised, we had talked about a person who emailed us with a wild story.
Wild.
And it ties in to our previous episode about generational curses.
Yes.
And that person is Big Ben.
Big Ben. Big Ben was awesome. When I went over there, and I actually, guys, he sent us some information, and I went and sought this guy out to hear his story. And I went to his office, of all places. And Big Ben is like, he's a great dude, you know? He's a husband. He's a father. He's a professional. But man, his family has really persevered. They've gone through some things, and it was intense, and it was confusing. It was crazy. And talking to Big Ben, I don't know, I kind of was transported there. We experienced it together, listening to this story. And I got all the chills, those little goose pimples, the little hair standing up on my back of my head. It was nuts. It was just nuts.
You know what that means?
What?
Your intuition was working.
Oh, there you go.
To protect you.
I hope so.
Did you happen to feel as if you were being watched as this story was going on?
Yes, I felt the energy shifted in the entire room, guys. It shifted. And we were talking about his family and what happened, what transpired, how he was dealing and coping with what's going on for generations. It was insane. And yeah, I felt something else was in that room.
Oh,
because
yeah.
It wasn't there when we sat down and exchanged pleasantries, but he started talking about it, and something was there in that room.
Something had arrived.
There you go. Crazy. Energy. Infinite. Just crazy.
I'm telling, our listeners, and I know it's hard to believe, but there truly is a beyond the veil.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And through my spiritual journey, for me personally, I've discovered that there has to be alternate realities.
Yeah.
And with, quantum physics coming into play, I feel kind of validated. There's the idea of string theory, which in essence means that there's probably different timelines.
Wow.
Somewhere out there in the world, you and I do not have a podcast.
That's insane. That's insane.
But I'm glad we're in this reality where we do.
I don't want to live in a universe where there's no ESPOOKYS talk.
Right? It just wouldn't be the same.
It just wouldn't be the same.
How would people start their mornings?
How would you drive into work and spend your 30 minutes in traffic without hearing the soothing sounds of
ESPOOKYS talk? Let's be real.
Me and Eva in ESPOOKYS talk. But I got to tell you guys, we're having a good time. And we're talking about some things that confuse me, some things that really kind of spark a lot of different emotions and feelings that I have. Because when I was talking to Big Ben, I know I'm bringing it back because I have heard some stories. I have talked to some people, you yourself included,
right,
who I myself have felt something, but I've never felt anything as intense as when Big Ben was telling me a story. It was nuts. Man, I wish you guys could have been there. You're going to be there because I recorded it. But you know what I mean? I wish you could have been there. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, to feel that energy shift, that's a unique experience. Man. And it's very rare for people to feel someone else's energy change like that.
See, and that's crazy because I talk to people. Perfect example. I have a tia, and she tells me some stories, and we're sitting around, and we're eating good food, and all those things. We're around our table, and it's the same thing. The energy shifts when she tells some of these stories, and they're her experiences, reality. It's her reality. It's not like they're telling a story that they read, you know. I mean, it was their experience. It's so intense. And my tia, by the way, has invited you and I to go and talk to her about some of her experiences.
Oh, I can't wait. That's
Aguililla, Michoacan.
So exciting.
I'm telling you, it's going to be ESPOOKYS.
You know what would be amazing? If we can capture an spooky moment as we're recording with her.
Well, that would freak me out a little bit, but I'm down.
But I mean, like, it's coming to, like, in my spiritual journey, like, it's coming to a place where, like, the people around me are hearing the spooky stuff that happened. Just like I had shared in episode 2 about how I was at work and my coworker heard it too, but I saw something.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And I think the more we're going through this journey, which is the reason we started this podcast, the more we're going to experience. And I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be amazing. I'm incredibly excited for the direction that we're going and for the exploration that we're embarking on. Like, this is crazy. And I haven't even shared with you yet. And although this isn't live, this is kind of live on the air. We're going to be doing some crazy stuff. I have some great ideas, especially for our next summer vacation. So prepare yourselves, everyone. It's going to get ESPOOKYS.
You better start bringing your protection candles. Start saging your room.
Absolutely. But, you know, to get back to Big Ben has had an experience that has gone throughout his entire family. And he explains himself and how he's dealing, and I think it's time. I think it's time to share. We're going to have to dive into this one and let Big Ben tell his story. So here he is, everyone. Here's Big Ben.
So my story started, 1945 when my mother was born, and was being raised by her single mom, and eventually it became too much for her. So then she was shipped off to my grandparents' home, or her grandparents' home actually, in Biola, California, which is just west of Fresno, the city of Fresno, in a rural community, a lot of farm workers there. I think I looked it up. It was like a population of 1,000 that has grown over the last 20 years to 1,600. So it remains a small community. The interesting thing about this community is that there is a canal because of all of the farms in the area. There's a canal that runs directly through the city of Biola, or the town of Biola. And so as I was growing up, it was really strange to me, all the things that my brothers and sisters were experiencing in terms of having nightmares and seeing things and thinking there was something wrong with us because we were seeing things that other people weren't seeing, experiencing things that other people weren't experiencing. So finally I asked my mom if she knew why all of these things were happening to us. And she was reluctant to even answer my question, but eventually shared with me that when she was a teenager, she had previously heard of the story of La Llorona and didn't believe it at all. And so one day she was walking home from school, and what seemed to be that person, La Llorona, was actually following her home as she was walking along the canal bank. And my mom was just blown away, like floored, because like so many times, you know, we hear this story and like we just think it's a myth or folklore. We don't think it's actually real. And then to be in that moment where you're like looking behind you and you see this woman in all black and you hear her, you can't even make out what she's saying. But so like when people say it's a cry, it's not like a whimper and tears. She says it's almost like a moan, like of pain and suffering. But it caught her attention, and so she started walking faster and faster, and and for whatever reason, the woman that she believed was La Llorona wasn't picking up the pace, but my mom said that the distance between them never got greater. So my mom's like walking faster and faster. She keeps looking back, and the woman's walking at the same pace and still keeping pace with her. So like my mom's freaking out. My mom decides to take off running. And so eventually she gets out of view of being able for her to look back and see the woman, and she runs to my grandfather.
crazy. Absolutely crazy. Not to throw an interruption in, but I know that a lot of you out there probably, this could possibly be your first episode. And in episode 1, we gave kind of a description, an idea of what the cultural phenomenon that is La Llorona. Super scary. I have a personal experience. Listen to it, episode 1. But what he's going through is just, I have no words.
Yeah, but as you know, La Llorona loves to be by any type of bodies of water.
Yes.
But her absolute favorite is like a river. And so canals do flow, which makes sense that she would use that as her haunting ground.
Oh, man.
And for those of you that don't know her legend, she's a heartbroken woman who had 3 children with this man. And he was like, no, I'll be here for my children, but I'm not interested in you anymore.
Oh.
And she couldn't take no for no. So she took revenge upon him, and decided, I'm going to drown our 3 children.
Brutal.
I can't even wrap my head around it.
Ain't no man worth that.
That's what I'm saying. And I talk about that in episode 1. But it's okay. We're going to reel it back in here and just talk about how, as she passed, she wasn't able to get into the gates of heaven. Obviously, for the crime that she committed.
Sure.
And so as she's living around in purgatory, she's haunting for 3 souls. Because she thinks that she can just trade them in. And unfortunately, there's certain bloodlines that she's attached to.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And it makes it more eerie. It makes it more eerie because I myself have had an experience. And could it have been my imagination? Sure. But belief and the energy you feel, that's all real.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had dreams of a woman that would appear in my living room,
Ugh.
where my parents live.
Get out.
Sorry, Mom and Dad. But it's terrifying. She's not an easy woman, but you just can't look at her. But again, in the spiritual realm, when you sleep, it's a whole other can of worms. So we'll pin that for now. And like I was mentioning with generational curses, it comes down through the bloodline. So it's interesting that Ben tells us that it's not just him who's experiencing all of this, but his siblings are too, just in a different form.
Crazy. It's crazy. All these types of experiences and stories and things, I'm telling you, it's why I'm doing this. But we got to get back to Ben. Let's find out what goes on. So it was intense, guys. You're going to like this. And here's Ben.
And so this is where the story gets very interesting because it was believed that it's my great-grandfather. I keep saying her grandfather, but it's my great-grandfather. Her grandfather possessed special spiritual powers because on his forehead, he had 2 veins that ran perpendicular on his forehead. So it was like the veins made the sign of the cross on his forehead. And so that gave him the ability to fight off evil spirits, if you want to, for a lack of a better term, evil spirits. And so because of that, when my mom had shared the story, her grandfather told her to stay in the house, and my grandfather went out looking for the woman. And from what I understand, he actually found her. So she was still out there, and he found her. And I hate to say this, but they got into a confrontation, and my grandfather beat her. And so having beaten her and warning her to leave his family alone, he left her there and went back home. And so I don't know how the story got back to my grandfather or whatever, but some of the people in the community said they heard that La Llorona had placed a curse on him and all of his family to forever be cursed because of what he had done to her. And my grandfather, he felt that his spiritual powers would protect him and protect our family, which in a sense were true. However, what happened was within the next week, my great-grandparents' home, my mother's grandparents' home, burned down without any kind of explanation of what happened. they never thought it was arson or anything like that. It was just an unexplained incident where their house completely burned down. And so they eventually moved out of Biola because they felt like the story of La Llorona placing a curse on them was true. They moved out of the area thinking that if we move away, then they could do away with the curse or eradicate the curse. And then, so my mother really never experienced anything like that until she became an adult and she had us children. And so my older sister at age 7 or 8 was the first one to experience horrific nightmares, to where she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming, stating that she saw La Llorona in her dreams chasing her around, and the only way that she could escape her is by screaming at the top of her lungs, which then woke her up and took her out of the dream. And so my mother, really wasn't sure of how to handle this situation, and having tight ties to the Biola community, she went to them and said, this is where it originated from, so how do I get rid of this curse? And
How do you fix it, right?
How do you fix it? And so being a primarily Latino community, they said, go see a curandero, right? And of course, in Biola, being a strong Latino community, there was one that lived there, right? So they brought... Well, when it happens there should be somebody to remedy it there, right? So the curandero came over.
It's crazy. Sorry for the interruption, everybody, but it's crazy. Like, I can't even fathom having that type of an experience and needing to seek out the help of a curandero to try to help literally cleanse you. It's insane.
Yeah, so for all our listeners, I want to clarify what a curandero is. It's a traditional healer. You can think of him as like a shaman. It could also be a female. But I think the most powerful thing is that Big Ben says they seeked him, he did his rituals, but he asked for the parents not to be there. So as you know, when you're doing a limpia de huevo, okay, which we talked about in our previous episode.
Yep.
Spirits, when they jump out, they will go to the nearest host. Okay. So that's why the parents were asked not to be there.
Interesting.
With rituals, everything has to be very precise. And as you're essentially controlling energies, this man is praying and asking for whatever his belief system is. The curandero that I have, so I want to share my experience here, is of a Catholic background. So he's simply praying in something that's familiar to me. And it does work, right? And as I mentioned previously, when my friend's mom was doing the limpia de huevo, she was praying again. So this is a very similar experience that, Big Ben is sharing that they did to his older sister. And it worked for her.
Yeah.
But of course, what works for one person doesn't work for all.
True that. But, it's crazy that you're saying that, because I've been told many stories from my parents, my mom, and, her family from Magalia, Michoacan, and the curandero there that did the limpia de huevo. He, like I mentioned in the last episode, when he absorbed whatever was in the person and burned all the ramas, the whatever bush that they had, right?
Right.
And cracked the egg over it, it was in the shape of whatever was inside the person.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. It's crazy.
And what is an egg, right? It's the beginning of life.
Yep.
And because it's in a shell, they were able to capture it.
I don't know if I don't know. I'm a wise enough man to know that I don't know.
Right. No, and I in no way claim to be an expert. I'm constantly learning. People are sharing stuff, and we thank you, listeners, because you're a big help. We're going through this journey trying to discover the unknown.
Ben's experiences and his family's experiences, it just, I don't know, it like touches my soul, because I feel like my family has had similar things. Maybe not La Llorona, right? But my mom and my tias and my tios, and stuff, I know that they've experienced things that are similar. And because, again, when I talked about things being similar across the world, different people, different cultures, different religions, that just means something's out there, And I feel for Ben. But I'm glad that we took this little pause to kind of help everyone who's listening right now kind of understand what he's going through and who he had to turn to try to help him with
right, with his parents and the desperation
Absolutely.
of trying to
Absolutely.
try everything because they want to help their daughter.
Of course.
Great parents.
Yeah. So anyways, back to Ben, because man, I was there and I heard the story and I can't wait to get back to it. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, but I do want to clarify. Curandero is the medicine man.
yes.
A shaman, a healer.
A healer. 100%. All right. Here we go. Back to Ben.
My sister's laying in the room. The curandero comes in and asks my parents to leave because they cannot be present to fight off the evil spirits that my sister's dealing with. So they left the room. The curandero did his worship and his whatever practice or prayer that he did over my sister. It involved like swinging an egg, like it's an egg on a string, and it swung over my sister, like trying to absorb the evil spirit. And then he took it outside and cracked the egg, and that's where the evil spirit was released outside. So that exercise was done. And then after that, my sister didn't have any nightmares. So they were like, thank God that we were able to eradicate that curse off of my older sister. Well, it wasn't even a year that my sister, who's 2 years younger, began to have the dreams as well. And so my parents are like, well, obviously the curandero didn't work, because even though it got rid of the curse from my oldest sister, the curse was still on our family.
Yes.
Yeah, still on our family. So this time my parents went to what they believed was a higher power, and they went to the church. And they brought over a priest, and we were going to catechism classes at the time. And so they brought over the sister that was teaching the catechism classes, as well as the priest from the local Catholic church. And then they prayed over my sister. Believe it or not, it did not work. My sister continued to have nightmares, bad dreams. She saw a very similar image. She could not say that it was La Llorona because her nightmares were more blurred. However, they were so they were so scary to her, because now imagine having a nightmare where you only can hear sounds. At least if you could see the image, then you know where it's coming from and it makes more sense. But my other sister could not see anything. She could only hear sounds. And so, like, what direction do you run if you don't know where the evil spirit is coming from? So anyways, the priest and the sister prayed over my sister, and it did not work. She continued to have nightmares. Eventually my sister went to a Christian church, not a Catholic church, where they prayed over her and they baptized her all over again in like river water. I don't know exactly the name of the river, but they took her to a river, baptized her in the river, prayed over her, and that actually eliminated my sister's bad dreams. Meanwhile, myself and my younger brother continue to have bad dreams, but we saw what my sisters went through, and we're like, we're not going to have eggs cracked over us. We're not going to have people pray over us. We're not going to be baptized. We're just going to deal with the nightmares. I mean, I don't know, like, it doesn't make sense, but it made sense to teenage boys, you know? And so anyways, as I got older, I just couldn't handle it because it was too exhausting to not sleep and continually have these nightmares. It impacted my relationship with people because I would scare the crap out of them, waking up in the middle of the night screaming. And then, yeah, like they're like, are you always gonna do this? And it was like I was a war veteran and had never gone to war, right? And mine was more of like, my dreams are very clear. My dreams have demons in them. My dreams have demons, and you could see their teeth. And like my curse was that I cannot move. So I'm in these nightmares. I'm paralyzed in my dreams, and all of these demons are like eating at me, and I'm trying to yell and scream, and my voice is muffled. I'm trying to fight them off, and I can't raise my arms. Like, that is my nightmare, like the horrible nightmare.
That's nuts.
So I start going to counseling because I'm like, well, at least let me learn how to cope with these things, right? And
PTSD right there.
yeah, and so for several years I went to counseling. It didn't seem to help in any way, shape, or form, but I still pressed on. And then finally, enough was enough, and I just literally went to a church and got down on my knees and literally prayed and prayed and prayed until I literally convulsed.
Yes.
I mean, it was just a single convulsion and fell to the ground. And from that moment on, I did not have bad dreams. So I can't even tell you what happened. Like, I prayed to God to get rid of these bad dreams out of my mind and out of whatever spirit. And I just prayed for, I don't know, probably an hour or so, what it seemed like an hour. And then, like I said, whether some people would call it the Holy Spirit or whatever, but I convulsed. And then once I came back from laying on the ground and just sat up, like I could feel a difference. And that night I went to sleep, and I had the best night's sleep ever, and no nightmares, and I haven't had nightmares since. And until this story continues with my children. So
No way.
yeah. So
Family.
so I will say at this point, like, if you don't believe that somebody could wish harm on your family, or if you want to call it a curse, like, I would say to be very careful with that thought and idea, because the idea that we didn't believe is probably what made us not protect ourselves.
Yes.
So by believing, you'll take actions to avoid those situations, but also to protect yourself if you happen to be in those situations. And so that's why ever since then I've been reading to try to figure out if I'm ever in this situation with my grandchildren. I know how to protect them, because unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to protect my children from this curse. And so my son, Joseph, who is almost, everybody says he's my twin, started to have bad dreams, but his were really worse because his impacted the environment where I experienced like spirits outside in his bedroom.
Unbelievable. I honestly don't even have words when Ben talks about his son and what is occurring, not just in his dream, but in his physical state. I can't comprehend it.
With generational curses, that's what happens. It starts to manifest in different forms to really mess with the person.
Oh man, but to manifest into reality?
It's supposed to be super, like, the biggest torment of the world.
Unbelievable. Ben and his family have really gone through it all. And for you guys to understand exactly how the story continues, unfortunately, it's going to have to be a two-parter. You're going to have to tune in to the next episode. Because the next episode, you're going to find out what happens to Ben and Ben's son. Like, it continues on. It's unbelievable, guys.
And it's going to follow their bloodline. And they're going to live their own experience in torment, and they have to conquer it.
You know,
And again, it's going to be in different ways, whether it's a curandero or them fulfilling their own way. And you just have to tune in and see how they do it.
you're going to have to tune in, guys. It is that time, though, so we are going to have to sign off. But again, I wanted to thank everyone out there for all of your continued support, for all of your downloads, for all of your messages, for all of your well wishes. You guys are absolutely amazing.
And don't forget, Arturo, what's our email again?
Our email is espookiestalk@gmail.com. ESPOOKYSTALK@gmail.com.
Feel free to send us your stories. We want to hear them.
Absolutely. And tonight, as you nestle down and get ready for bed, be sure to look under your bed.
Lock your closet and mirrors and turn on a protection candle.
It's a spooky time.